We add the last 4 years to the growth in the federal government, and it's off the chart. The growth in the federal government is over 30%. In other words, the federal government has grown 10 times faster than personal income. Now we have to have that picture too, because it gives a sense of direction in terms of what we do with the debt. When I first saw this chart, again, I pick it off the internet, I send it, email it to the printer. I'm not artistic, he is. When I first saw this chart, it reminded me of something that I used to do in my 20s at the county fair, and I have a hunch there might be 1 or 2 of you here that did the same thing. That is, when we had our tractor pull contest, back then, we would have a tractor hooked up to a big sled, and it would have some weight on the sled, and then some of us would stand on the side, and as the sled came by, we would step on the sled. And of course, more and more people stepped on the sled, you get more and more weight on the sled, and at some point, this big diesel engine couldn't pull the sled. Not enough traction, not enough power, whatever. Anybody else besides me ever do this? Okay, that was great fun, wasn't it? I thought it was a blast. Of course, I drove the tractor some of the time too. But why do I say this reminds me of the tractor pulls? It's because what we've done here over the last 42 years is we've put more and more weight on the sled. And the weight on the sled is a matter of taxes on the economy. It's a matter of regulations on the economy. It's a matter of unfair competition on the economy. It's all kinds of weight we've put on the sled. And we've put so much weight on the sled that the economy isn't able to create the kind of recovery, robust, free enterprise recovery that we need in order to employ people, in order to increase tax revenue and the like. There's too much weight on the sled. So why are we stuck in this 8.2% unemployment rate? Why do we have more people going on disability than we have getting new employment? It's because there's too much weight on the sled. Again, I'm a numbers guy. Up until about 2002, 18% of our gross domestic product went to the federal government, or was utilized by the federal government. Now we're up to 24%. The engine of free enterprise can pull 18%, can't pull 24%, unless we want to have perpetual high unemployment, slow growth, and huge deficits. Okay? We can't, the engine isn't big enough to pull 24%. We have to get back down to 18. And this is a big reason why I say we have to balance the budget with spending cuts, not more taxes. Because more taxes put more weight on the sled. Every time you raise taxes, every time you have new regulations, every time things like the Big Stone power plant is scuttled by the EPA, you're putting more weight on the sled. And we have to ease up, take weight off the sled if we're going to have a vibrant economy. It is that simple. And let me just close with this, and then I'd love to respond to your questions. I've been involved in politics a long time. I was in legislatures, you know, in the 80s. Wrote a lot of important bills. I'm the guy that wrote the bill that discontinued a welfare department and made a Department of Jobs and Training. By the way, I worked very closely with Rudy Perpich on that. Rudy Perpich was a good man in a lot of ways. I disagreed with him on a lot of things. But on jobs and training, he was good. And so I've done all these things. I've been involved. I've been Minnesota co-chair of 3 presidential campaigns. Worked a lot behind the scenes. I have never seen an election where the issues were so clear and so simple. I mean, really. Nothing that I've said here is difficult, and a lot of it, I'm sure, is not new to you. And you could go home and say, well, Quist just didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. I'm sure that's true. But I am here to say that I'm totally committed to changing this. So why am I here? Why am I the most dyed-in-the-wool walleye fisherman in the state of Minnesota in Worthington instead of being with my brother-in-law up in Lake of the Woods fishing walleyes, which is my love? It is because I have 10 children, I've got 37 grandchildren, and I want them to have the kind of opportunity that we had. And that's why, and some of you have seen it, we put together this TV ad with my granddaughter climbing the mountain of debt. Because that's the story. I mean, at best, we're passing this debt on to our kids. So everything I do says balance the budget on it. It's on the sign, it's on our stickers, it's on our webpage. I am convinced this is the big issue. Rochester Post-Bulletin asked me a week ago, Al, what are your 3 big issues? Number 1, balance the budget. Number 2, balance the budget. Number 3, balance the budget. Number 4, make the kind of changes that we need to get the economy rolling. Number 5, repeal Obamacare and make use of free market solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, that's where I'm coming from. I would be very happy to respond to any questions, comments, anything you just want me to explain more, or anything that you'd like to ask about. I would be happy to deal with. Yes, sir?
You said you like to be direct, so I'll be direct.
Yes.
I'm a student.
Yes.
In the summer,
Yes.
I earned my way through college.
Mm-hmm.
For every paycheck I get,
Mm-hmm.
I see this big chunk of it going to the Ponzi scheme of Social Security. And I have no reason to believe that I'm ever going to see that money again.
Yeah, I know.
What will you do about that?
Well, Paul, are you familiar with Paul Ryan's program, budget? Okay. I think Paul Ryan's on the right track, where you allow people to invest at least some of that money on their own, as opposed to all of it going into a trust fund that doesn't exist. So I think that Paul Ryan's plan has merit. But the biggest issue, all right, the biggest issue is the debt. Because, and I want to say this to everyone here, not only the student, but some of us here are probably on Social Security. The biggest threat to Social Security is the debt. Because if we don't get our financial house in order, we will not be able to meet our commitments. Period. And I think you know that Greece today is not able to make its retirement obligations to anybody. And that's true with Social Security, that's true with Medicare, that's true with veterans benefits. Okay, and here let me be explicit on a couple of things. Congressman Walz likes to campaign on what he's done for veterans benefits, and I will grant him that. But Congressman Walz says the way to deal with the deficit is for the federal government to spend more. And this is not just a difference of opinion. This is fantasy land versus the real world. Okay? If spending more were going to solve the debt, we would be out of debt. For 2011, 36 cents out of every federal dollar spent was borrowed. Okay, what do you want to do? Go up to 40 cents? So, what good does it do us to do small stuff on Social Security or veterans benefits and head towards financial capitalism? So if we can get our financial house in order, then what's being taken out of your paycheck is going to have value. If we don't, forget it. Okay? We have to keep our commitments, but we have to be able to keep our commitments. Before another question, let me just ask you, of your friends, I have a hunch most of them see it exactly the same way. Right, wrong, I mean, they don't have any confidence that they're going to seize. No, I don't. And I don't blame them. Tell them to vote Quist. Seriously. I mean, seriously, we have to get our house in order. We have to stop this nonsense. I mean, this is absolutely foolhardy.
Can I just ask for a clarification?
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure. So you said you support the Ryan plan, right?
I'm not going to say I support every part of it. I think what he says about Social Security is a good, I think the basic structure is a good structure, letting young people invest part of their money in something else. I support that. I don't support all the Ryan plan. Okay, why? Because it doesn't balance the budget until about, what is it, 2033, I think. Or at least. I mean, I think when you're 20 years in the future, you might as well predict the weather. So, but I think you'll probably tighten that down. So I don't support the Ryan plan totally, but I like this part of it. Okay?
Is the Social Security budget, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Basically, my question is, so we want young people to get into an investment plan of some kind. With some of the fraud we've got on Wall Street.
Right.
And that the Dow went from 1,400 points to 770 points at the beginning of the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
If that whole system would collapse, you know, the rest of the economy system, these people that, let's say you had a choice between Social Security and an investment plan, those people are going to be dumped to the government anyway.
So what
I'm saying is he's more sort of invest in whatever.
So you're saying it doesn't matter?
What will be safe.
Okay.
Yeah, and with the fraud going on in Wall Street, who knows? And let's say that he made a good choice or a bad choice in his investments.
Yeah. Well, let me mention what Australia has done. Because Australia 15 years ago was experiencing some of the same, at least they saw the same things coming. Australia made 3 changes about 15 years ago. One of them was to clamp down on fraud. And I think that's a no-brainer. And you probably know there are 4 of us in the state that are trying to clamp down on Medicaid fraud, especially at the highest levels. I'm one of the 4 people. You have to clamp down on fraud. And both the state government and the federal government have been looking the other way on fraud. The second thing they did is they rolled back the regulations so that business could compete better in the world economy. The third thing they did is they said, we're not going to spend money we don't have. Now, they haven't been perfect there. Their debt to GDP is about 22%. But compared to ours, it's over 100%. They're doing pretty well. Last quarter that I saw, they had a growth rate of over 5%. Economic growth rate of over 5%. Our growth rate was less than 2%. And I believe that if we do the same thing Australia has done, those 3 things, we can have a growth rate of 5%. If we do, then Social Security becomes viable whether we take the Ryan plan or not. If we don't, then it maybe isn't going to matter. But we have to clamp down also on fraud. And that includes not only Wall Street, but governmental. Okay? That includes things with the Federal Reserve that may not be fraud, but behave in similar ways. And I think we have to take control of the Federal Reserve. So, those kinds of things. But Steve, don't be pessimistic.
The one thing is, there's a few of us that our parents went through the Depression and whatnot. And my parents were 40, my dad was 47 when I was born, so I had parents that lived in the 30s. And you know, they saw it much worse than we've ever seen it here.
Yeah.
And
right.
I guess I got a little bit different perspective because my parents were old when I was born. And
yes. But let me respond to that by saying, if we don't solve this, what your parents saw in the 30s are coming again. I mean, look out. We have to solve the debt crisis, or we're going to relive the 30s. Maybe I shouldn't be that explicit, but I mean, this is where it's at. Other questions? Yes.
I'd like your response on an article that I read. It took the federal government's budget, and it started with the total income we take in every year.
Right.
It subtracted out all the mandatory things like Social Security, Medicare, and federal defense, and the deficit, payment on the deficit.
Yeah, the debt of interest.
And if you cut out the rest of the federal government completely, we still couldn't balance the budget.
Right. That's correct.
So what's your response to that?
2 things. I mean, national defense has to be on the table too. Okay.